Okay, we are opening the meeting without a quorum. And we will not be able to approve the meeting minutes then. Fortunately, we don't have any public hearings. So that works out for us. And then, so we move right on. Obviously, we don't have any visitors because we hardly have anybody. So our city council liaison, which also then goes. We give you an update.
Okay, so it's actually going to go into, well, one of the things is we're wrapping up the comprehensive plan.
Oh, okay.
So I spent a lot of time this weekend just past week just reading through it and the implementation, and I'm not sure what the date is going to be that we presented in the city council meeting.
The 19th.
The 19th, it is going to be the 19th. Okay, and so they will. So we had an opportunity to go through and provide any comments that we might have, and then so that they can finalize it, and then they'll be presenting it then on that. So it's a lot of pretty good stuff in there, and I think there's some things in there because, of course, I paid close attention to the housing. In fact,
It's only 244.
exactly. So the resilient neighborhoods portion. And so there were, there were some things in there. There's some really good stuff in there around just suggestions that we might do instead of, including things like, the conservation districts and community land trusts and different things that we could do to really, address the housing attainability challenge that we have. And again, it's not just a Webster thing, it's a national thing. And I like the fact that they're using a lot of the verbiage around the missing middle, which is just a big challenge because there's just, people can't afford to, unless you're wealthy or can qualify for subsidized housing. There's that donut hole. So there's some good stuff in there. And so we will, again, that will be laid out in the meeting on the 19th. And so I encourage you if and the plan is on the website. But what I tell you, a good thing to do is a lot of this information here is backstory, but under the plan, it actually, in this section, which is actually about 60 pages.
Oh, so not bad.
So not bad. And there's pictures and it's bulleted and things like that, but it actually talks about in each area, let's see, 78, for example, it'll give you the particular area that we're talking about. Okay, so resilient neighborhoods. It gives you a narrative about what that landscape looks like for Webster. And then what are the goals? And so ours for that is like diversifying housing options and attainable housing. That was 2, 3, distinctive character. So under each one of those, then they lay out what is the strategy for addressing that challenge, and then some implementation actions that they recommend for doing that. So that's a much easier read. You can eat that elephant much easier if you're looking at that. If you go in and you look at it like that, it's go through that area. And that's actually what I did, was really went through, because we've seen it often and helped develop it and what have you, but to go through there now for this last check, that's how I approached it, to go in there and look at those bullets. So I found that to be really helpful. So I would recommend that. So that's the big thing that's coming up, that we're trying to get that situated and
So it sounds like you have really done a great job studying it and looking into it. And so do you think that, and obviously partly because of what we are here, do you think that those things that you just meant, like the attainable housing type of stuff, are things that the city council is going to pick up with and run with, or is it going to be kind of a So is it gonna be a big interest for everybody, or is it gonna, because there's several things, there's more things than just that, to do.
Right.
There's other issues. Do you think that is gonna be an important issue with the council? Do you have a feel for that yet, or?
I think it will be because it's an important thing for the city. It's one of the things that
Mhm.
continue to come up. It's just like even the conversations that we've had here,
Mhm.
which is, what can you do? I have children that were born and raised here and went through all the schools, and then when they went to buy a house, they had to live somewhere else because they couldn't afford here, or either I want to retire here. And it's hard to find a place that you can do that, or either we're all dealing with the things. So there's things in there like we need to really take a look at our zoning, to see what are some of the things that we can do to address the fixed area ratios, to address the issues with the development and the things that are coming in the area. So those are things that we've laid out in there that we need to address.
Mhm.
And so the last part of this is an implementation plan, and it talks about what actually needs to occur in order for us to put some of these things in place. But overall, what the comprehensive plan is like, this is the first time the comprehensive plan has been updated
I know,
for
very
Webster.
long.
Exactly.
So,
So it's kind of,
it's a lot to take in.
it's a lot to take in, but it's almost like a roadmap
Mhm.
as to what the city would like to see and for what the upcoming councils things need to address, because we of course can't do everything at once.
Yeah, I guess that's
You know,
exactly what I was wondering. Right.
Exactly. So,
Yeah,
but
you
we
gotta
know
have
that
it.
housing is an important one.
Yeah.
We also know that one of the ones that in there, economic vitality. I mean,
Yes.
that's huge. We got, and then opportunity sites or opportunity excellence, that just
Some of those commercial areas they were talking about.
that we
different
really
funds,
need.
yeah.
Exactly. And so they've come up with some options for some things that we can do, and how can we present it in a way that we can get a builder back that's interested in look at it, because right now we have this persona that, nobody wants to come and build here, because anytime they give something that they want to do, we vote it down. The builders. And I said, well, no, that's not necessarily true. You came with something crazy and we voted that down. And but
there's plenty of new houses are built. Lots of people come. So we don't want bad builders. We want the good builders.
exactly.
So,
But
the
then
good ones
one of the
are
things that I think that I understand that we didn't do with that particular RFP was we weren't specific.
right. It has, most RFPs are quite a package, quite
Right,
honestly.
exactly.
We have like a paragraph.
Exactly.
So you're gonna get whatever.
Right. And
And-
what we got was something that was totally designed to maximize their profit. And
Of course, that's their job.
that's their job.
That's their job.
But they didn't take into consideration. So what they have really been specific about in here is when we put an RFP out,
It needs to.
it needs to be specific and allow for flexibility.
Right. Obviously, right.
You
It
know,
has to
and
be
so
buildable. But-
exactly. And so that a
Yeah.
builder can have a reasonable confidence that if they do what
X,
we've
Y,
laid
Z,
out in
yeah.
here, then they can expect that they're
They're gonna win.
is gonna
Yeah.
be
Win-win.
accepted. Exactly.
Are you talking about Green Street when you were just, is that the bill you're talking about that you voted down?
Oh, right, yeah, the Douglas
Douglas
place right
Hill,
over there
yeah,
on
okay.
Pacific,
I
yeah.
just want to make sure.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and apparently there was one before that, some years before that or something that I wasn't.
It was a few.
Exactly. That thing, they wanted 7, 8-story buildings or 8, 7-story buildings. It was like, no, that's not gonna work. So, so again,
We
and
have
so.
a street capacity.
No, so that's one of the things it talks about is so some of this is like suggestions and guidance on how we can address those things that we really need to do and try to do them in a way that's achievable.
Right, and good development.
And
You
good
want
developing.
Best practices, it's always a good thing. And it's where you do have to have quite a layout of information.
Mhm.
It's a nice idea that you have a concise little paragraph that we want it. You want people to have ideas, but
Mhm.
you actually, in a way, you don't want them to have ideas. You
Right.
want them to do what you want them
You
to.
want them to design
Yeah.
within what you think the
Exactly.
community and the city needs and wants and will accept.
Exactly. And I mean, it's no different than a homeowner saying,
Right.
I'd like a house, and somebody saying, okay, well, here's a house, and they're like, oh, I only wanted 2 bedrooms, this has 6, you know, like it's, you have to specify what you want.
And then it also talks about the need for us to be able to communicate to the importance of communicating to the citizens
Mhm.
that, okay, there's things that the citizens, that Webster is clear they don't want.
Mhm.
They don't want box stores. They don't want a bunch of chains.
Yeah.
Okay, so then that means there's gonna have to be some kind of offset because we need revenue. You know, and so when they talk about the different opportunity sites, like right there at Watson and Elm for one, and then the other one is at Pacific. So Watson, they just talk about the Watson corridor, basically, from, you know, what you can do in there from Watson and then come up there to that corner of Elm. And they even gave us some examples and drew up plans of what might work. And it was actually, everything is sort of the suggestions that they made, I thought were really thoughtful because they did things like when even talking about the business districts that we have. You know, we got the 3 Old Orchard, Old Webster, and Crossroads, but we also have Marshall and Sutton over there and things that can be done. But with each one of them, we're talking about, okay, we don't want the box stores and things, but then what we have to think about is when we're developing those areas, we need to try to keep in focus, we have to create more population so that because we're in a pool. So we need to consider looking at these mixed use buildings where we have commercial on the bottom and some residents, some, you know, apartments or whatever on the top. Okay, we're knowing that probably the max that's acceptable for our community or that we think we could get approved is like 4 stories,
Yeah,
you know?
And closer to a commercial district,
Mhm.
right in the middle of,
Yeah.
where everybody else's house is smaller.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Like Kirkwood.
yeah.
Mhm.
yeah, you
So-
don't want towering buildings, 'cause even the people who are gonna live in them, then it's a little uncomfortable
Mhm.
to be in a funny spot.
Right.
It
you
really
know.
is. You wanna go up to your apartment and feel like it's home. That's probably one of the biggest things too about the
Mhm.
community.
Mhm.
We like people who want to feel like this is their community,
Right.
not transient
Right.
people who are like, well, I'm here for 15 minutes and I'm
Right.
leaving. I don't care what happens.
Which is why
So-
most of that development, when they're recommending things like that, and jump in if I'm like
No,
mistaken or whatever.
you're right on point.
Okay, but it's like, it's those things we're putting or are making those recommendations in those business or opportunity areas. How can we maximize those spaces to help us do the things we want to do while staying within the character of the city?
Yeah.
You know, and that Watson corridor is old Route 66.
Mhm.
So that, I think that would be an ideal thing to capitalize in there. And there is also grant money
Mhm.
that is available for revitalizing Route 66,
Mhm.
historic Route 66.
Mhm.
So I think that would be ideal and it would be suited to the historic character of our community.
Exactly. Exactly.
But what would be really important, assuming the council approves the plan, is when you do write an RFP for something like Gore and the tracks or Elms, is to refer back to those points in the comprehensive plan that
Right.
talk about what they want. Because without it, you run the risk of the developer going Douglas Hill again, right? No,
Mhm.
this is what we see for this space.
Right.
We read our comprehensive plan.
Right.
And reply based on that.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a very good point. This
Mhm.
has what we need.
Exactly.
It's spelled out there. And often you do get that when you get an RFP, you get, here's these documents that you're gonna be looking at, or that we want this.
Mhm.
And it's not in the RFP. It's,
Right.
you need to go read these documents. So,
And you need to look at this because this is telling you what we want as a city.
yes, exactly.
So
And you
don't
can
come with, you know.
You can use that as an opportunity to deny an
Yes,
RFP. Say, but
exactly.
you didn't read our comprehensive plan. We
Right.
don't want this there.
Exactly.
And, you know, on Hillary's point also, there was that land that is across the street from Merrimack, across Big Bend from Merrimack.
Mhm.
And there is a residential development there. And there, Kirkwood went through a lot of pains because out-of-town developers were coming in and trying to do we're gonna maximize our profit and we want you to change your zoning codes to comply with this. And the people in Kirkwood were getting very angry because they're saying, we pay the taxes here, we live here, we told you what we do and
Right.
don't want.
Mhm.
So why are you changing the zoning codes for anybody who's gonna blow into town, make money and leave?
Mhm.
And there were several iterations of that,
Mhm.
and I used to live there. People were getting hot under the collar, understandably. And finally, some very savvy developer came in and went through the meeting minutes
Mhm.
from all of those objections
Mhm.
and developed a plan that answered those objections. And it went through like that.
Mhm.
So I think Hillary's idea of saying, look, this is what we do and don't want,
Mhm.
and finding ways to direct developers to learn the character of the city, like whoever that very smart developer was who went through and looked at the objections.
Mhm.
It'll smooth things along for everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why I think this is actually very well done,
It
because
is.
that's basically what they're doing, is they're laying that out.
And it's not overly prescriptive.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, it shouldn't be. I mean, the role of
Yeah.
comprehensive plan is to
Well,
set the
that's what
vision.
I'm saying.
The zoning code is what puts those actions.
Exactly.
I'm sure we've all seen ones that just really don't work because it was somebody's doing too many nuts and bolts, and trying to do
Yeah,
something that was too
micromanage.
tightly controlled,
Yeah,
so it wasn't
that
workable.
would make a good
Yeah,
comprehensive.
yeah.
plan.
So, I know this one is very well done.
So, yeah, so that's what I would say. I would suggest, yeah, I found it very. I actually took the time I stole the time to go to sit down and go through and read that part of it, so I could just kind of digest that and be able
That's good.
to talk to it.
Thank you very much for the.
You're welcome.
And then my other part, the other one is next, so I'm gonna need your help on this part, but it's okay. But so one of the things that we have next on here to talk about is the proposal to amend the front facing garage code.
Can I, add a note here? Jason has joined
Oh, yeah,
us, so we
right.
now have a quorum.
Yes, we do have a quorum, so we are official. Oh, should we just, we'll go back and approve the minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go back and do that before we get started. Okay, so did everyone have a chance to look at the June 10th meeting minutes? Any comments?
Excellent job by Brian.
Yes, does a great job.
There's a reference in July saying that the Jews were not prepared, but they ended up prepared. Looks like, so I
Yeah,
don't
we're-
want to take that out.
We're actually approving both of
Yeah.
them tonight.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
that's fine,
so I know.
because it's there, you know.
Is it? Yeah. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Well, okay. I'll just go. And I think Sue's name was spelled wrong, but.
Yeah, it's an indelicate.
Yes.
Do we have any extra changes up there?
Yes, I do.
So one underneath there.
There we go. There's
Many thanks.
your point officer.
Okay, do we have a motion for the June 10th meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The June 10th meeting minutes are approved with the minor correction of Sue's name. And how about then the July 8th meeting minutes? Does anybody have any comments on this?
I'll make a motion to approve, oh, I'm sorry, didn't go for the motion.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve the July 8th meeting minutes as submitted.
We have a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? I didn't say that before. Okay, the July 8th meeting minutes are approved as written. Okay, so Karen, but now we'll move on back to you.
So, I'm before you know what I should have put this up. So actually, Okay, so basically, I brought this up and recommended an amendment to the zoning code pertaining to front entry garages. Because we have that first requirement in there that you cannot have a front entry garage unless you have unless 40% of the properties on either side of the street have a front entry garage. And first of all, I felt like that wasn't being consistently followed. And then the other is because people can go and request a variance, and Elliot can in the presentation, it tells about how often those variances have been granted.
It was about one per year on
Right.
average.
Or something.
Yeah.
Mhm.
20 in the last.
20,
Exactly.
yeah.
And then, so I felt like for one of the things, when we're talking about, so for three reasons for me primarily, it was to address the economics of housing, attainability, because the cost of building is impacted by a requirement to either do a rear entry or a side entry garage. And then it also impacts the sizes of the houses. So when we're looking at things like affordability, then we're talking about the additional costs that can be incurred when you do have to have a side or a rear entry garage. And along with that can come impacts of sustainability, because now you got a lot more impervious ground. You got, for example, this monstrosity that was just built next to me. I'm a little filled.
Yeah, the monstrosities, yeah.
Okay.
All those we can.
Exactly. And so the lots are 170 feet deep. My lot's 170 feet deep. This lot is 170 feet deep. So we now have pretty much 150 feet of concrete all the way down the length of that lot before you get to the garage. And then when you look at the lot, there's literally no green space left of it. In addition to that, the property behind it, and I know that we have, I forget whatever you call it, that you're supposed to put back there so it catches or defrays rainwater or whatever.
Detention, stormwater retention.
Yeah, it's the property behind that, their whole backyard, their garden, all this stuff has been decimated by the rain, by the runoff, by, you know.
So they didn't build it the way they were supposed to.
Or whatever.
Yeah, it
And
wasn't
it's a hill. I mean, we're
But still, they're supposed, I mean, that's why we have the zoning is
Mhm.
to make it so that someone doesn't do that to the neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks as though it was done anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what they can do about that.
Yeah, well, it sounds to me like, it might have been a design issue or something, but when those things are properly designed and placed, they should work. So, just because this one failed, I don't know that that's an issue that needs to be considered for all.
Well, I think it needs to be taken into consideration from the standpoint of we have a lot of conversations where we talk about sustainability. And a lot of that sustainability has to do with water, with runoff. And the more concrete we have, the more you have an increase in that.
Are you suggesting that the new ordinance prohibit this?
No, what I'm just suggesting is, first of all, there's three things that the new ordinances will have in it. One is that it eliminates that 40% rule, because we have pockets in neighborhoods all over Webster where you have whole neighborhoods with frontage garages. So you have, and you have, we're not, the historic
So
districts
about
know it's not gonna
areas
happen.
that don't have front entry garages, now they're gonna have them all over the place. So what about?
Well, they still have to meet the code. They
But
still
there
have
is
to meet
no
the
other
code.
requirement that removes a garage. If we remove this, those areas like Gore or where I live on Rock Hill,
Mhm.
front entry garage would be allowed. And there is no rule that would do anything to keep someone from having front and center 2-car garage. There is no other rule. There's no.
Well,
other
there's
kind-
rules that have to
other-
do with the size of the
Size, but-
garage and the design of the garage.
But our sizes are standard normal garages that most people would have.
Mhm.
So they're not like, it's not limiting it to like a little 1-car garage or
Mhm.
anything like that. You could have a 2 or 3-car garage
Mhm.
right there. right on Rock Hill Road, right as my view when I moved here
Mhm,
with the intention of not looking at that.
mhm,
So, you know, like,
May I speak to?
yes. Mhm,
And so, as I was tasked with, first of all, presenting what some of the issues are. And then come up with some, the recommendations for the proposals, which I'll speak to in just a moment. I live, as I said, I live in Benton Park. My personal feeling is that there shouldn't be garages in front, but that's just my thing, and that's,
oh, and that's what Webster Groves is like, that's how that's
Yeah.
in
Well,
here. So,
so
same
when
feeling.
I presented for the proposals to amend the code, we're more about, okay, first of all, eliminating the 40% rule. I hear your point, but
But what?
we have not consistently enforced it.
Well,
There's only
then consistently enforce it, yes.
It's not the city's fault, though. I mean, that is the city's fault.
Yeah,
So if you're,
consistently enforce it. If the
then
problem is-
consistently enforce it, yeah.
Well,
that
and
doesn't-
it's like, the Board of Adjustment is empowered to grant variances, which is what they've
But they've
done.
granted.
But they're creating their own hardship. How does the Board of Adjustment get past that?
Well, I'd have to go through each and every one of the variances.
And they've done one a year.
One a year to me doesn't seem excessive. One a year to me says, if somebody has a true hardship, there is a remedy.
Well, there were, let me go through the numbers. And, you know, this is.
So I guess I still am wondering, like, so taking this, I can understand, maybe there's something that needs
Well,
to be
let
done.
me.
But I just don't want, for instance, a street that has no garages. I don't think they should be allowed.
Well, the historic, okay.
No,
and
it's not, most of our streets are not historic, so.
This is true. And that's a fair point. I'm simply proposing some things based on what I have seen in the research. And it's up to the council and the community to decide how they're gonna go for it. But let me.
You know, to me, I don't know how many of you were here when the current ordinance was developed. But there was a lot of community engagement, there was a lot of back and forth, and I will say the council and the mayor and the planning staff at that time did an excellent job hearing everybody. There were many iterations, and we came up finally with something that everybody agreed to, and it was like, what a relief. Hallelujah. People who, you know, they're going to buy a house on a street that already has front entry garages. They're okay with that. They accept that. Those of us who live on houses and streets that are old housing stock have the old charm. They might not have historic designations. I really don't want that charm destroyed by somebody putting a 2 or 3 car garage in front of the house. I mean, I went over to Kirkwood when I was looking at their ordinances. Is this really what we want? I don't want to look at this in front of my house. And that ordinance as it is says that only doors that are over 10 feet wide are required to have architectural character. So do we really want 3 flat panel metal?
I think one of the things, I think,
Says.
Yeah, I know, but it's time to take a look at that part, because I mean, I really don't want to look at 27 feet worth of flat panel garages.
If I may continue, because there's 3 different pieces, and there's several things in the existing code that remain unchanged. First of all, let me just talk to numbers. Since the garage code was passed in 2006, there were 31 variance requests for garages. 24.
I'm sorry, all attached garages or
Yeah.
were there some of those detached?
No, there were others for detached. These were
Okay.
the ones in wider garages. 24 were approved, 6 were rejected, 1 was withdrawn. Of those 24, 21 were an appeal of the 40% rule. 4 were for increased front yard projection, and 3 were for an increased garage width.
Before you go on, are those mutually exclusive numbers? So is only four,
No,
so
there's some of them were double and triple.
4 and 3 could be overlapped in terms
Yeah,
of, so
there was
one
a couple-
project could have a extension and a width extension.
Yes, that is that is correct. So that is where I looked at it and said, okay, well, we're granting these variances, so propose to eliminate that because the trend is to say, okay, we're gonna keep granting these variances. And that's where I was coming from. I'm not saying
So
right,
a developer though typically won't take the time to go for a variance. They're not gonna waste their time. That takes too long. They own the property too long. They don't wanna do that. They own it for as short a time as possible, build the most cheap house they can, right? That's their job. That's what they do. They're not there to baby us and think, what do these people want? No. What's gonna sell and what's gonna make me the most money? It's going to be as large a garage as I can have right in front. All of Northwest.
Well, but see, there's all the things that need to be done to address that. First of all, the thing, but let me finish. The first thing that we need to address is the fixed area ratio, because that has more to do with somebody building something like that next to us than it does, the garage thing. Now, we do have requirements, design requirements for the garage and the person.
yeah, I'm sorry, I need
I'm
to.
talking about the garage being there and what it looks like. I'm talking about it. I don't want it there at all. And there's no other requirement except for this that keeps it from being there.
Okay, but see, what I think is that instead of having that feeling for your area in your house, there's many places in Webster that have front entry garages, and there's other communities, there's other neighborhoods that have them or that are open to that. And anytime you have something being built on your street or whatever, generally, well, I don't know what requires a public hearing or whatever.
Only
But-
historic districts.
Only
Yeah.
historic districts require public hearings, just because it's in an older neighborhood. When I listen to the council.
That's one on my house had a public hearing. On my street had a public hearing.
For a
Because of
variance?
No, a
It wasn't,
variance.
they
A
were, because
variance
they
is
were
different.
tearing down and building. They were tearing down and building.
Everything goes to ARB, and any new project will go to ARB. So that may be what you're referring to.
It
Mhm.
was not a public hearing. The public
That's-
cannot speak.
That's what I want to say is I listened 2 times to the city council meeting where this was discussed.
Mhm.
And I had some very strong concerns. One is that from the conversation, I think there are gaps in understanding about the design submittal and review process. And I think that those gaps in understanding may lead council members to believe there's more safeguards in place than there are. Because I heard some remark along the lines of talking about historic properties. Well, after ARB reviews it, then HPC looks at it. We don't do that. We don't do design review. And the thing is, there was some remarks, I was like, and people were talking about, well, the ARB decides the 40% rule and we don't. And so I was finding this very concerning. And also we have design guidelines for the historic districts, but guidelines don't carry the force of law. This ordinance, the 40% ordinance, is the only thing that I know of, the only law that I know of that's keeping those front entry garages off our historic properties. Design guidelines are not as enforceable as an ordinance. And I think we need to look very closely at what those safeguards are for our historic properties before we enact these changes. I just, I'm very concerned about that.
And one thing with that too, is it seemed to be the notion that the ARB, so the ARB does not have the power to go against zoning. So if you've got a big 3-car garage and that is allowed, according to the zoning, all they can do is try to make it look nice. They cannot say, no, you can't have it.
But that's addressed in the sizes, isn't it?
Yes,
In what way?
because in the third proposal, and this is what I'm going to get to, because there's 2 additional proposals. One is, yeah, so the second one is if you have a garage that's in the front, whether it projects forward or is set back, the sidewall between the garage and the rest of the house has to have the same architectural detailing as the front.
So the garage is still there.
Yeah.
Right, well, and I appreciate that, and
That's 42% of your lot. On our wide lots, easy to put a 3-car garage.
And some of them allow 50%. So,
but,
yeah,
Easily.
but, and
Are you
the,
talking 50% width?
yeah,
The front, okay.
yeah, half of the house, the front of the house will be garage.
So that's not what, I guess,
but,
there may be issues in the community where we need something to change. I understand that. But one thing about regulations is we want them well done. We want it to be so that it suits people. And if there's a problem and we need to address it, we don't want to basically make more problems. You know, that isn't what you want to do. Like, we've already had the problem with like different problems. We've had problems. We all know that how that works. Where we don't want the city council sitting there going, oh, what the heck did we just do? We don't want them to do that either, right? So we want them to feel good about we've helped people out doing this. We want to make sure that's what it is. It isn't because the home, in particular, the small homes can, like she said, they can still be torn down. That is not addressed. They can still be torn down. And all it's going to be is a garage, a little entry over here, because this could be 16 feet wide. And this, that would be it. Big, huge house next to little houses. And the ARB is going to make it look as nice as they can, but they can only do so much.
Well,
They don't have the authority.
one thing that this proposes to eliminate is right now, there's an option for A or B to approve a design for a garage that exceeds the width limits.
Exceeds
That's
it.
even worse.
That's
That's in the code now.
yes, it is.
And
But no one who wants one wider than 3 stalls. Really, we're getting people that want that.
My point is, the third proposal I make is to remove that. So,
That doesn't help the first part.
I understand.
They
So
could still have the 3-car garage.
And I think you need to keep in mind how people use garages. A lot of people don't use their garages for vehicle storage. They use them for everything else storage. They use them for workshops. They use them for kid play space, which means that their cars are going to be permanently parked in their front yard, basically in the driveway. And right now, there is a provision for off-street parking, a requirement in Webster that there be at least one off-street parking spot that's behind the front building line. And the reason for that is aesthetics. If we put these front entry garage out here with a big bunch of pavement, people don't use that garage for vehicle storage. Their cars will be parked in the front yard 24/7. And I have a situation in my neighborhood where this is in the backyard. It's a detached garage. The people use their garage as kids' play space. Great idea. They're entitled to do that. But when those garage doors are open, which is most of the time, that's not something you want to be looking at on the front of your house.
Who enforces the requirement that you can't have 2 cars parked in front of your house?
That's what I'm saying. If we have these 2 and 3 car garages on the front of the house, there's gonna be cars parked there. I mean, is this
You
what
can
we
do that
want?
now.
But is this what we want? But I'm going to say, yes, you can do that.
Yeah,
But
of
the
course you
more-
can. I do it all the time.
The more of these we have, the more cars we're going to have parked in front yards. if people are actually have.
But that's not against any code requirements.
But what I'm saying, something may be against the law, but when there's less opportunity, when there's less opportunity for it, you're not gonna have as much. You know, so what I'm saying is,
I'm not getting your point.
You know, one of the challenges we have is that, you know, we sit and we talk about things that we need to do to make the, we want to maintain our character. We want to do that, but we also want to address some of these other issues we have, which have to do with affordability,
Mhm.
which have to do with people living here, being able to stay here,
Mhm.
what have to do with people growing up here,
Mhm.
wanting to live here. Right now, increasingly, that cannot happen. It's happening less. We don't even know how many opportunities for people to live here we actually lose, because by the time they look at the ordinances, by the time they look at the stuff we can't do, by the time they look at all of that, they just say forget it and go someplace else, or their children just go someplace. I'm just
So then-
saying.
The biggest problem is the demolition of the houses that are affordable. We are
yes,
demolishing and demolishing and
Right,
demolishing.
and some of that, and we
affordable
can't do
housing.
everything in one ordinance. We have to do things in pieces. And one of the things that I've even said in here is that instead of having this fixed area ratio where the square footage is based upon the size of the lot, it should be based upon a consistency with the square footage of the houses that exist on the block or whatever now.
Mhm.
So I mean, if we said something like that, you know, first of all, that addresses the size of these houses that would come in and do something like that,
Mhm.
you
Right
know,
next
and
to
then,
the little house.
and next to some little house. But then the other thing is that, you know, one of the things that we have to look at, and it's in here too, is we have to consider diverse housing design options. You know, I mean, we're gonna be looking at more things like in some areas that get built up, you know, different, and it's not just the Webster thing, it's a national thing, just different things that we have to, some things we're going to have to look at some flexibilities and how we're building and the type of housing stock and the diversity in housing stock that we have in order to make it, you know, attainable for addressing that missing middle thing. You know, we're not, whenever we talk about attainability or whatever, we're not talking about low, moderate, and just, you know, blowing up everybody's idea of what Webster should be. But we're gonna have to look at some diversity in our housing stock and how we can look at that and change first of all, I'm a big proponent, and even in here, I said, we need to do something about that fixed area ratio, because we're tearing these houses down and then maxing out the lot
Why would we
size.
do that? I mean, there's not a case to be made that there's cases have been made between front loading garages and affordability. I don't,
Not at all.
because that house will cost, I'm gonna, $500,000, and a house, you know, back there on Maple will be $500,000. It's not, you're not gonna get affordability in 3-car garages.
There is, if you are building a detached garage, you are adding, as opposed to something that can be incorporated within the design of the house.
So being an
It's
architect,
something that can add
it
to the
isn't. I
cost.
can tell you right now,
yes,
that is not true.
we
at all.
design and.
We design
build
houses
and
not
build
true.
buildings. If you are going to say, okay, I have my house here and I want to build a garage, boy, I'm going to save a whole lot of money if I build this attached garage. You're not, because you have to tie the foundation into your existing house. You have to tie the wall into your existing
More
house.
expensive.
You have to rip the shingles off of your existing house and tie the framing into your existing house. That all
firewalls,
Fire
costs-
rating too,
the
yeah.
fire ratings, you have to add the fire ratings. That all costs money. So any cost savings, you're saying this is attainable, the math isn't there. The math, as the kids say, the math ain't mathin'. You know, when you look at, and we know this, we design buildings. It's just that saying that's a whole lot of savings, it's just not. And then also too, with respect to the concrete, if you have a 3-car front entry garage and it's 30 feet to the street, that's 900 square feet of concrete driveway. Now, think about how far that 900 square feet could go if you did just a 10-foot wide driveway to a side entry or a rear entry. It's not a whole lot less money and a whole lot less paving. It's just the configuration. So I think we need to be realistic about what we're saying. And I do agree that sustainability and affordability are absolutely should be our top priority, especially with housing. So to me, what we should be addressing first, and I hope the council will make this a 911 emergency when they're implementing this plan, is it's like the scene of an accident. The first thing we do is stop the bleeding. There's recommendations to disincentivize tear downs. There's recommendations to find ways to incentivize rehabilitation, make it easier on people like me who are on fixed income to maintain our houses. Those are the things we should be looking at, because every single month that goes by, we see them coming through here. We're losing small houses that are valuable resources that will never be replaced. So the first thing we need to do is stop the bleeding. And it strikes a blow for sustainability as well.
Absolutely.
Because the most sustainable, the greenest building you have is the one you already have. We need to keep those little houses out of landfills. We need to keep them in use, and we need to keep them affordable and attainable. But we only see the ones that come through here that are 50 years old or older. And a lot of them, some are totally distressed. They need to be come down. But a lot of them they passed the Webster building inspection. They're beautiful. Developers are spending $350,000 for a house and ripping them down. So if we're going to strike a blow for attainability and sustainability, the first thing we need to do is address losing these resources that we're hemorrhaging and that are not coming back. That should be the highest priority.
That's in there,
Yeah, so let's do that first.
you know.
Yeah, let's address that first, because the more time that goes by, the more houses we're losing.
And something like this. So one thing.
Excuse me for a minute.
Oh, no, you go ahead. I don't want to stop the flow.
Oh, no, go ahead. That's fine.
So this is, I guess, harkening back to the issue of the cars on the street. I don't know if this has been discussed yet. I'm sorry for my tardiness, first of all.
Thank
But
you for coming.
no worries. It's been a busy summer. My question is there anything that can be done about the safety issue that I see with the cars being parked on the street? Because Webster isn't widening the street, but people are continually parking their cars on the street. We got Amazon trucks zooming by, we got the regular residents zooming by, and then those poor kids who do use the garage as like a place to play are riding their bikes down the driveway.
And out in the street.
And out in the street. And so I wonder if there's anything in what you're talking about that addresses any of that.
In this, no, that's more of a.
Traffic, that's
Traffic.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, because, in the city, they put the speed humps. And I'm not saying that's necessarily the right approach for Webster, but that's the city's approach.
Yeah.
Is speed humps everywhere. And I see this all the time. People come zooming up the street, either stop right, slam on their brakes, which doesn't help their transmission any.
Not at all.
To right before the speed hump and then go up and then accelerate, or jump the hump, which also doesn't help their transmission. But it does slow down a number of, I don't know if it's the majority, but it slows them down. But that's one possibility. The other is, bump outs, roundabouts,
And this pillar 6, the complete streets for all, they talk in there about different things that they have considered for making the streets safer, slower, and making it more difficult to to slow down the traffic, to slow down the speeding and everything on the street. So they kind of talk about that in it.
Okay.
You might want to check out the traffic advisory commission. Yeah, they've got a grant. I don't remember how big it is. I assume it hasn't been rescinded.
Mhm.
They've got a grant to study great streets and figure out how to do those kind of slowdowns and this sort of thing.
We're gonna be talking about this. I'm on the Safe Streets Committee. And so we're gonna be talking
Yeah.
about this. We have, we're on recess right now. We're gonna reconvene, I think, either this month or next month.
Yeah.
But that would be something to talk about for sure.
But so, so you were gonna finish. I was gonna say, because even the conservation districts, I would almost rather see, where we have, I don't know, just this one size, this mandatory, this for the whole city, when there's pockets where there's front entry garages, where there's bungalows, where that's where they are. I get it that you don't want it on your street, but there's
many
other,
others.
but there's places they do want to see more diverse options in the houses and in the properties. And I just think that we gotta, we.
So it's not, so in general,
Mhm,
as a design standard for neighborhoods,
mhm,
having a garage right out here at the front
mhm,
is considered your lowest level.
mhm.
So if you're going to build as affordable housing as you possibly can, you stick the garage out there like that. That's what that is. Everybody else says, if we're going, let's try to make this a little nicer, let's move those garages on the side, let's have rear entry,
Mhm,
stuff like that,
mhm,
is how they kind of bump up the level.
mhm.
So instead of, when you say that about having a diverse stock of housing, we do have that. That's part of what people love about driving through Webster Groves.
Mhm.
You got a different house here and a different house there, and oh, look, those two are like twins. They kind of match, or they used to, or whatever it is. People love that, right?
Mhm.
And so we don't want to kind of like dumb it down. We want to keep that. And so there's nothing wrong with a house being modern in style or doing something nice, but to do it so that, well, let's make it, we don't want to do it so that I've always felt a little, so that's nice that these houses, they can build these houses that are affordable. And by doing this, putting the garage right there in the front, and the whole neighborhood gets that kind of feel. There's not really much room for trees and whatnot.
Mhm.
But why do those people deserve this or something? Like, why can't they have what's a little nicer too? That's, it's like saying, just because you don't have as much money, we're gonna give you the ugly stuff. I mean,
Yes.
what the heck is that?
I don't think that's.
That is absolutely true.
And when we talk about, something in the comprehensive plan is about, having spaces that develop community
Mhm.
and that encourage interactions in neighborhoods. And historically, front porches that was the center of social interaction, okay? They were like 8-10 feet. People sat out there, they see what's going on in the street, they know their neighbors, they talk to people. That's a very strong sense of community. Now, as automobiles became prevalent, then automobiles started dominating our neighborhoods. That's where we get the front entry garages. The porches are no longer used for socializing. It's just a little tiny thing over here with a cover on it that, keeps the rain off of you when you go into your house. And the socializing gets more isolated because it pushes people into their backyards. Nobody wants to be, are you gonna want to sit out on a front porch, a little front porch like that with this? There's no green space. You're not going to be able to talk to your neighbors. So, having these garages being the centerpiece of these homes is the opposite of what we say we want. And then when you look at things like new urbanism, they're going back to front porches in order to facilitate community. So neighbors know each other, people talk to each other. So to say that all these front entry garages that are going to be allowed everywhere is modernizing, it's backward. It's like, oh yeah, we're modernizing to 1980. That's just the antithesis of what we want.
And I've seen all kinds of, we've seen extreme examples, right, where it's that much garage and that much front door, right? And it pushes people to the back of their houses. And if we want to talk about creating neighborhoods and maintaining neighborhood community, having everybody live in their swimming pool or whatever it is in their backyard is gonna do that.
Yeah, and I know on my street, we have everything from restaurants to I think last time I looked, it was $1.6 million huge houses. And I do know after living there for 27 years, the people that live in the older houses who hang out on our front porches, that's where we enjoy eating, that's where we enjoy talking to each other. My neighbors with front porches, I see them and I know them a lot more than the people who live in the backyards with their pools and pergolas. There's just, that's the way it works. And I think I'm not at all opposed to looking at diverse housing stock. I think we need to do that, but I think we need to do it carefully. And we need to balance it with maintaining a sense of community, encouraging a sense of community, and maintaining our historic character. I think we need to slow down and be sure we're doing this right. Too many people are counting on us to get it right. And all of the people who have gone before us in this commission and people who have rehabbed their houses have spent a lot of time, energy, and care maintaining this character. And do we really want to undo it like that? I mean, let's take time to look at it.
I have a question. Are we being asked as a commission to give our recommendations by a vote? We're just listening, because it could be anybody. Okay, just curious.
And I think that I think it's important to note that.
And giving your opinion.
Yeah, the thing is, I know, obviously city staff, Elliot's multitasking, doing 4 things here all at once before this meeting. Okay, I get that y'all don't need just something else to do right now. I totally get that. But the thing is, we have so many talented people who are volunteering with the city. We've got a whole board of licensed architects. We've got all of us. We can take burden off of city staff doing proper due diligence for this kind of stuff. I mean, more thorough due diligence. And we're here. I mean, I know this is an initiative from the council, so you don't have to use our services. My question is, why would you not want to? Why would you not want to slow this down and take advantage of all the talent and experience that y'all have?
I don't understand your question.
I'm saying that the vote on this is very aggressive. We've got a first and second reading that's scheduled for next week with a potential for a third reading and a vote in September. And I think I would like to see this looked at more thoroughly, and I would like to see more opportunity for commissions to weigh in. As one of the things I heard was, oh, well, this ordinance is comparable to other communities in our general area. Well, I think when we look around in our general area, we can see a lot of different characters of community. I mean, are we patterning after Maplewood? Or is it Baldwin in our general area? Is it Ladue or is it Lime? I think when we're saying, oh yeah, well, everybody else does it. Well, let's look at the results of that and see if that's what we want. Which everybody else are we talking about? Because obviously there's different municipalities have far different characters around here. So I think we really need to slow down and say, okay, where are we going? If we're emulating City A over here, let's go look at City A and see the long-term results of having this ordinance in place. And is that what we want?
I think it's fair to say, I'm not speaking for myself because I've talked to other people who've been longtime residents of Webster. We came here because there were no front-facing garages, or at least an absolute minimum. I don't want that big old garage. And I know I'm not the only one because I've talked to other people. We came here for that reason. And I think that's what has upset people in Kirkwood, is because they probably did the same thing. And next thing you know, those tiny little houses are being torn up and those are being put.
Yeah.
I
And
think
so
part
what-
of,
Oh, go ahead. I'm
I
sorry.
think part of the contention, at least from my perspective, is that residents don't feel heard.
Yes.
I think that's probably why we're so passionate about what we're talking about, because we don't really feel heard. So yeah, I'll digress.
I think you're right, though. I
Yeah.
think, because I try to pay attention. I read the agendas when they're sent out and everything. There hasn't been a lot of opportunity for people to weigh in
No.
on how they feel about this issue.
Meanwhile, I keep getting.
Well, there's a
calls.
public hearing there.
That, but there's not been really anything
Mm-hmm.
in this Friday letter or anything.
No, there hasn't been, and I know like from the comprehensive plan, I mean, the city was shouting it from the rooftops as well they should. We want people input,
Yeah, it's very good.
as it was excellent. And the thing is, with something like this, we all know people are busy, and unless you go online and read the one-liner that's in the city council agenda that says front-facing garages, we don't even know. There was a brief article in the Webster Kirkwood Times a few weeks ago, which is how I became aware of this. And I think that I really agree with Jason's point, is that people don't feel heard. And if this is all of a sudden enacted and then, you know, somebody's having something that they totally didn't expect being constructed right in their face, you know, the last thing the city needs, I think, is another rollout debacle. You know, like, I totally agree, the Pocket Prairie thing had good intentions, and I do appreciate the city apologized for the lack of information, because people were very upset with the rollout. And I think that's another reason to kind of slow this down and engage the community more, because those kinds of things really create a feeling of ill ease and mistrust and lack of confidence in what's going on. So I think there's a whole lot of reasons to slow this down. I'm not opposed to looking at it, not opposed to changes, not opposed to variety, but make it well known. Slow down the process a little bit. Listen to people's concerns. Engage your boards and commissions and get them to help with due diligence. To me, there's every reason to do that, rather than to have people feel like something's been.
Well, that's one of the reasons when I was a fan of making sure we had a meeting tonight too.
Well, I appreciate that.
Well, no, but it's because still,
I do appreciate it.
I'm of the mindset that, yeah, slow it down and see what other options we can come up with, because at the end of the day, there are still, what do you call it, variances being made. There are still, you know, there's different communities, there's different neighborhoods. So, you know, if it's slow it down and get opinions on how additionally may it be addressed, you know, or something like that. But what I don't like and what I don't want to see is we just consistently come back with this is Webster, this is what we do, this is why we're here, and we don't want to do anything different. But we got to do something different to try to accommodate.
You keep saying that. I don't see Webster that way. It's actually a very, very progressive community of very progressive people. So it isn't that people don't want to do something different. They don't want to do something quick and dirty and thought out, slam
It's
it in
because everybody else does.
and see what they got
We
over
don't want to
there.
be Ellisville.
They want it to be done well.
And
So if you had a group of small townhomes, to me, small means 1,200 square foot per unit,
Right.
townhomes, and that little development was gonna be there, 5 of them in a row,
Mhm.
and they're going to do it somewhere, back entry for their little
Right.
garage along the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
You describe to a developer, here's what we want, it's gonna look like this. You would get someone to build it in Webster, because they would be sold instantly.
Absolutely, because that's.
But
I
we
mean,
don't
even-
do that here. We
But
do
that's some of
something
the
like
things
this.
that we're talking about.
But we're
when-
not
when
talking
we're-
about it.
We are talking about it. We're talking, that's why we have stuff in here that we need to look at a diverse housing stock. We
Yeah.
need to look at different things that we can do. We tried to present even 4 or 5 years ago, a change in the zoning that would allow us to do more
No,
things like that.
I understand that. I'm sorry.
That would allow us to do more things like that, but people immediately took the position that they thought we were trying to do a lot of multi-family, low-income housing. We were talking about things exactly like what you're talking about, different housing stocks, townhomes, things like that, rear entry garages, things like that, like are down Dale Avenue, going down Dale toward that, and you come down the hill and all of those are rear entry, they're row houses, they're smaller, and so those are maybe options that could be more affordable
Mhm.
for young families or young professionals or our teachers or our firemen or whatever, and things like that. And we just again, we got to try to present those out there again. What are different things that we can do?
So that thing that was presented, I personally wanted to vote for that. Wanted to, because I wanted it spelled out that people needed to do something similar to what I just described.
Mhm.
Not allowing a person to build two 2,500 square foot duplex of each unit, 2,500 square feet.
Mhm.
In other words, a 5,000 square foot building. In
And
the
I
middle-
totally agree.
A middle of a bunch of little houses.
Right.
In the middle of.
Because with that,
That's
because what I
would be
wanted
cheaper.
again was that fixed area ratio thing. It's like,
Exactly. So
that's crazy because all that did was just let people go out there and they're gonna take a lot and they're gonna take up that, it's
Yeah.
gonna be to that 6 feet on both sides of it, and it's all of that, and all of that needs to be addressed in
Yeah.
order to make that something better.
So we
I-
can
I-
do that.
Mhm.
I truly believe, I'm in favor of the duplexes, but not in that form. And not letting them spring up willy-nilly in our
Right.
established neighborhoods.
Mhm.
And for me in A4, and I know I speak for a lot of my favorite friends and cottage dwellers who maintain our historic cottages. It was like, oh, the people in the big zoning districts, A1 and A2 were like, we don't want that. Oh my gosh, what could you be thinking? And it felt to us, whether it was intended or not, it was like, oh, well, we'll listen to the people in the $2 and $3 million houses. They don't want it. So
Right.
we'll just shove it over here on the A4 people. Well, to me,
It
it's
should
like,
have been across the board.
if it's just so peachy wonderful, it's peachy wonderful for the people in the $3 million houses too.
Mhm.
And that's something else I think we need to consider very carefully is how things are being perceived. Because where there might not be bad intent,
Mhm.
if people perceive that, it has the same effect. And I mean, Karen, you just said something that I'm hoping we can go with. Let's slow down the process, because one of the reasons I think I and others who are aware, we're feeling so alarmed is that it's like, okay, we've got the first and second reading scheduled for next week, and there's not going to be public engagement. We're really not going to formally engage the boards. And then there's going to be a third reading and a vote 2 weeks later. It's like, what is the hurry? And for those of us.
For one a year, for one variance a year, more or less.
Yeah, for one variance a year. And, unfortunately.
And that's one variance a year, but I mean, and I don't know if Elliot can speak,
Well-
but we don't know how many of them that they just say, forget it, we're not even gonna try.
Well, but you know what? That's fine. They can go wherever they want to go. But what I'm saying is slow down the process.
That's fine,
Let people
that's fine.
feel
We can
engaged.
print that out there to slow down the process, but what I would like is some, if that's not what we wanna see, then let's provide some type of options,
You know
because for people to just say, well, yeah, no, I just don't want that.
Yes.
Well, what can you, give me something,
Well, I tell
you
you
know,
what,
what can we talk about?
I'll tell you what, I was looking at this because I feel very strongly about it. And, so I was driving around various communities to look at what's going on and to look at, some of their newer houses. And in some cases, it's, well, you know, I don't have to tell you what the bad stuff looks like. But I was driving around Glendale and I was like, now some of these houses are pretty big, they're bigger than I would write. But they were all really tastefully done. And the Glendale has some superb design guidelines. They are superb. And they address things like almost everything I read started out with respect the neighborhood, respect the size, the massing, the style. It doesn't have to match exactly, but respect the neighborhood. And it even gives brief design ideas about how to keep a larger home from overshadowing a smaller home.
And again, that's something that's
Yeah,
in
but-
here that has to do with, what did they call it? It was design,
It's usually kind of like neighborhood fit or something.
it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
something like that, where they have this design book or the design profile, things that are kind of, that we know would be approved for, that are acceptable for the
Yeah.
neighborhoods, and
And they-
recommendations for your design and different things that you do for the.
This wasn't as specific as like a pattern book, which I
Right.
think is a
This
good
is what they're
idea.
talking about in
Yeah,
here.
but this,
Not that everything just should look alike, but they're
Well,
saying
that's-
these are the type of things that we would like to
and
see.
they were like great design ideas, maybe for people who don't really, you know, think the way people do who deal with housing all the time, like, okay, here's a way that you can configure your house to keep the same interior square footage, but bring the visual size down. And I mean, and it's very, very readable. It's very concise. It isn't overly, you must do this, you must do that. It's not like that. It says, this is the general feeling we want. We want you to design within the context of your site. And here's the ways to do that. And they do have some front entry garages that they are tastefully handled. I mean, and you can tell they're very few. I mean, as I was driving around, there was 3 on newer houses. And the ones that were done were very compatible with the surroundings and didn't lead to a lot of excessive pavement. So when you say, give us something, that's something. And so, you know,
I'm not sure you're giving Erin what she wants though, because those are expensive homes.
okay, but the thing is, they don't have to be huge, expensive homes. My point is, they fit the neighborhood, they fit the style, they're not obtrusive, and
No,
this guy.
I'm with you. I'm just saying they're not really getting where she needs with affordable homes.
But what I'm saying is, when we're building stuff, let's build it that fits, let's build it that tastes, they're not prescribing the size. But the thing is, those neighborhoods look nice. I mean, granted, well, when you look at the new stuff that's being built around here, none of it's cheap either. I mean, so keep that in mind.
$1.6 million for a brand new house. That's a big, huge box.
That's a vinyl box.
Yeah, because I mean, these big side and rear entry houses, and these things leave a lot to be desired.
agree.
They're
Yes, they
big.
do.
And when you're talking about, you know, like townhouses with rear entry garage, McBride builds those things. I mean, they're not, and they're cheap. I don't mean cheap, but.
They're not so.
A young family with
They're
one
affordable.
child can get in there, I'm gonna pick a number again, $250,000. So, you know, but, and go up to Maryland Heights for heaven's sakes. And there's a whole bunch of them over there from
I mean-
McBride, and they're new.
There's some beautiful ones in Maplewood.
Yeah.
They're
Quite
gorgeous.
nice little
Beautiful
ones, and they're not these great, big, giant things.
So can I ask a practical question? So we want to build a garage on our home. We'll have a Century Home next year, working on that. On that plaque thing. So what would be like, how is it affordable for us? Like how would the affordability work if we need to build a garage on our property? Like what would be the steps to be sure that we are doing what you suggest? You know what I mean?
I would hire a good architect, you know, just a plug for the profession, but you know, what Ellie's like, oh my gosh. So when what we see is
I'm just listening.
Yeah, I know where I think
Oh,
of.
wait, when, just in my experience, architects who are familiar with Webster and the Webster character and the requirements here will be able to head you in the right direction and give you some budget numbers before you go too far down the design path.
Okay,
That would be my recommendation.
okay. So would it make you mad if we pick this architect and they built the garage and they have like a little living nook on top of it? Would that be too much?
Well, it's
Some
with,
people do that.
some people do that, and that's in, you have to comply with the zoning codes.
Gotcha.
So, and it's not the ARB that approves zoning, it's, the planning department will.
So those
review-
accessory units,
Yeah.
Yeah,
so we did change the code
Okay,
so that you
Okay.
can have accessory units, and that's probably where that's gonna come under, because you're gonna,
But it has to be somebody that you're related to.
but
or
that
works for you,
accessory
doesn't it?
units have to be
it
some.
would be like an office though. It wouldn't be like.
you can
Yeah,
do that, we've got,
but
they're
you're just
all over
talking about
town.
these-
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
You can put space over the garage.
Yeah.
What you do with it, that, there's code requirements with that, as Hillary just alluded to.
Mhm.
But, if you have an attached side garage, let's say just hypothetically, like the houses on Lindell, where, the L's back and then the garage is stuck in the back corner, and you put an office on the back, on top of that, that's part of the house.
Gotcha.
That's,
They're all over the place here.
Okay.
So yeah, you can do that, but just kind of for clarification, once you have it, a good designer like an architect, we have to, in order to get our projects approved, we have to know the zoning ordinances and the building codes and all of that. So, you can get a project designed by somebody who will know those codes, and then when they're submitted, Elliot and his team review them for planning and zoning compliance. And then once he determines they comply, then they come to the ARB.
Gotcha.
So I think that it sounds like what you want is very doable. And yeah, I would just kind of get your wish list together and then consult some design professional who's familiar with our area.
I know too.
So let's wrap this up. Go ahead.
No, I was going to
Can I-
say that very
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Just one quick, has the planning commission reviewed this?
This wouldn't have to go to the planning commission because it's a zoning, it's a
they
code
are,
amendment. It's a,
but they are, we are talking about bringing it to the planning commission.
I think
Yeah,
that would be a good
see
idea.
In fact, because it's, in fact, as I'm sure you would know, I mean, this is in the zoning code, so it actually
Yeah.
is under their purview to look at and review.
And the Board of Adjustment also, are they being consulted? Since they reviewed.
well, so what we'll do is ask Marie to take it off of that first and second reading, to slow it down, to give us some more who all, because before we weren't informed that it was going to planning and it was going to Board of Adjustments and it was doing all of that. So to slow it down and then to get some feedback and see, I don't know what you might want to see in terms of engagement, town hall or public or whatever. This would have to be like a town hall, so you can talk and back and forth. Because when you're doing the public hearings, all you do is get to come and talk, and it's not a two-way conversation.
Karen, I think that's great, and it makes me feel greatly relieved, because, like I was
I think
talking,
it's a good idea.
when, I think Hillary, you were around for when this 40% rule, weren't you living here? Yeah, see Hillary's reaction, a little twitchy about that. Okay, so, because it was hard, but Hillary, please weigh in. I think the council did a fantastic job engaging people, effectively listening, and working really hard to come up with a compromise that people felt good about. And so, I don't think anybody felt like, something presto changeo happened and nobody knew about it.
Mhm.
So I think that was really good. And I think that if people have the chance to feel heard and engaged and key players like the plan commission need to be consulted. I think I would feel a whole lot better about this. Just, I feel much more relieved that we're willing to slow it down and do some more engagement and consult all of us who do give our time to the city. And, really, when you add up the retail tab on our time, it's a lot. So, and you guys get it for free.
Yeah. So when you see what blew up about the prairie,
Yeah.
Pocket Prairie, and nobody knew about it in the spring of the roundup and whatever. Just people don't like to get that stuff done.
Yeah, I mean, there has to be, so that's what I'm saying, we gotta come up with something or some type of, an exception or something, an additional stuff. Exactly,
So
because.
that it's a easier say, so
Mhm.
because. In general, it works reasonably well, but there are pockets where it's not working, is
Right.
basically what you're saying,
Mhm.
so. It would be good to know, like, what, I understand it's a 40%, but. What is the characteristic that they might have there that would be different, that
Mhm.
would change, I don't know, you know what I'm
Right,
saying? Like,
right.
so that you could add in those places as they're also an exception to this rule,
Mhm.
because, right, is that,
Well, I mean, because one of them is like, for example, like on the street, was my parents built that house in 64. And so that area, a lot of that stuff in that area in North Webster was part of a federal land grant program. So they built little ranches. Most of them have driveways. They don't have a garage, but they have carports and they have driveways. So, which to me is really not much different than having a garage, because you're driving right up off the street and you got the carport. So you have, blocks that may have houses with carports, but they're saying you can't have a garage,
oh,
yeah,
You can't
and
close
then.
in your carport.
Hmm?
You can't close in your carport, make it garage.
Yeah, you can close in the
Oh,
carport,
okay.
oh,
but if you want to go build a house, they're telling you can't build something with a garage, and that makes no sense when you already have houses on here
Oh, the
with
carports don't count.
carports.
Well, then maybe that's.
Oh, well, that needs to be.
And so,
I would include that.
so that's what I'm saying, and at least look at the different things that you could do, but then the block, and this is like per block or whatever.
Yeah.
So then up the street, now you have a hole where Douglas School was, and then they built all of those houses up there. Every last one of those have a garage.
So that, but
you
that
know-
street works though, I mean.
And so, but I'm just
I
saying,
can't
there's
get-
different neighborhoods all over Webster.
But a
where
carport doesn't
some
count as a.
Well, you know
okay.
what? See that right there, Karen,
That makes-
is that
That needs to be added in there.
that's the kind of thing, thank you for bringing that up, because that's an item that can be highlighted, that can give people some variety. It's like, okay, well, carports can count in that 40% rule for a garage. So if your street has
That doesn't make.
all these.
That makes no sense.
So
That's what I'm saying.
That's something we can
Yeah.
do to make it make sense,
Yes.
so those,
That's
Yeah,
okay.
is there gonna be something that we need to vote on?
Well, there isn't probably, I guess,
I don't wanna leave because I don't wanna lose the. If there is.
we were gonna discuss if you think, well, Sue isn't here for this sort of society, the tree plaques and the landmark database and since those. We're not really voting on anything, I guess.
Okay.
We were just gonna discuss, but
gonna need to go.
I guess we'll
So-
maybe discuss next time, though, it's got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This has been really informative. I think it is. Maybe we just suggest everyone listen to this recording. You were heard on that recording, Carol.
I get fired up. Very hard to get moving, so it's.
I like it. Don't worry.
Like it. I like that fire.
Slash garage, I mean, to me, I don't see what's the difference?
I don't know.
Those should be the same,
Yeah.
carport, garage, whatever you got there, that should count. That's a weird
Well,
one, that is interesting. I don't know why I'd be so surprised, but I really do.
Yeah.
Okay,
So, again, I will ask Marie to, You know, if we can just delay the first and second reading, slow it down, you know, see what, you know, what you like to see. I don't know.
So what do you think?
What do you think,
Change,
Elliot?
in particular with the carport? I don't know. I'm gonna drive around now. I am so confused.
And I see what you're saying now.
I-
I get it now.
So, yeah.
And then we just got,
Yes.
with a lot of lake. That's for this is side house, it's not, this one was, is it's replacing an old carport for a new one on the exact same dimensions. So it's a non-conforming use, it's not getting more non-conforming.
And they're still building a carport.
Yeah.
And could they make it?
Oh, you're looking.
That would be a change in the use. And those, that would be a change
Interesting.
because,
I wasn't
articulated.
articulated.
because of,
I was carport.
I don't know why carports are great, I think the added addition of holes
here.
apparently makes a psychological difference.
You know.
I don't know.
Let's look at it. You know, we
Well,
don't
like
look at.
from a fire point, stuff like that, but I would think from,
Yeah.
when they're,
Yeah.
it's the same use.
But,
I'm not an architect, but I think you park a car and need both of them.
Did you know that?
What's that?
That a carport and a garage would be two different uses?
Oh, my gosh, no.
Say again, a
A
carport.
carport and a garage are
it's
considered
not two different.
uses
design-
for the zoning
Yeah,
aspect. So you could not take your existing carport and your spot, you know, you can rebuild, like you got your garage there. At my house, there was a carport there, and at one point, they put a garage right where it was. It's too,
So you can't do that.
not anymore apparently, because they
Well,
did
no,
a while,
no.
that was a long time ago.
it's what you're talking about is a question of setbacks and layout. And that would depend. So with this particular carport that I've dealt with today, that I was telling you about, they were replacing a carport with a new carport.
Uh-huh.
The footings would be exactly the same. So that, from a zoning standpoint, is replacing like for like.
Mhm.
From a, since it's currently non-conforming, because it's right up to the building line. If they were putting walls in, then that changes the non-conformity. Just the sheer act of adding the walls. But because they're replacing a carport with a carport and the dimensions do not change at all. They're,
Yeah, that's.
that from a zoning standpoint, they're building, replacing one for another.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting with this one, the roof pitch is changing. And while that does not change the zoning, it does change the stormwater because the runoff is gonna change. This is the pitch right now, we're getting into the weeds, I apologize. The pitch goes
We
towards
understand.
the house, but with the new proposal, the pitch goes towards the other next door property.
Door neighbor right into
So
your
that
property.
that cannot, that's not like for like.
Right.
So for that,
It's right on their
they have
property,
to
too.
do a stormwater plan.
Okay.
So it really gets into the weeds with the nature of the design.
Wow.
So question, so we had, at our property, we had a garage at one point, the previous owner had a garage.
Right.
That garage burned down. So I don't even know where that garage was on my property. But if we wanted to build a garage, would we have to build it in that same spot?
No,
Okay,
no.
You don't
and
have to,
I
but
got
you
you.
can.
I got you. Okay.
If it's within the setbacks, then you could build it in the same spot. Now, in that case,
That's too late.
no, if it was like too close to the building line
Mhm.
and it burnt down, that's no longer non-conformity, more than 60% of it was damaged. You have to build it inside the setback lines.
Inside the setback lines.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe you can look at some old like Sanborn maps or something and find out where their garage was, because if it burned down, those
There was
foundations might be under there and you don't want to run into that with new construction.
there is an easier option than that.
Yeah.
The St. Louis County parcel viewer map.
Yes, I'm.
Right,
Has-
does it have that stuff that old?
Yes, it does. No, it goes back to nineteen
Yeah,
thirty-seven.
but it's still fuzzy. Yeah.
No, 1955 is clear, 1937 is a little less clear, but it's still pretty
You
clear.
can- you can kind of make
1970 is awful.
Yeah, there's one here in there, I remember.
It's on the
Yeah.
tax assessors.
If you want to come by, I'll show you.
Yeah.
I still.
Yeah.
Drive around with the car.
Thanks.
And then if you have an idea of when it was built, then we can find the
So
permit.
our house.
Well,
had
you're,
our,
you're in the county parcel,
uh,
the assessor's real estate database will list out the additions and the accessory buildings and the approximate year it was
garage that I
built.
Personally don't.
Okay.
care for.
Yeah. So yeah, come by. We can look up your property.
There's what?
and then-
Three story
There is a
garage, it's way
lot
in the
of
back.
free
All
information.
I appreciate that.
jammed
that-
in the corner.
Thank you.
So that part's fine.
So
But,
anyway, I'm
it's
sorry,
too
I'm
close to
getting
the side.
way.
No, I love that.
Yeah,
No,
pretty
no,
sure
I
it's
love
too
that.
close to the side.
Let me know even on my
So they
work.
built,
if I
yeah,
do.
they built this three stall.
Sometimes it's fun, but
I'd
they're
rather
nerds,
have a little
but.
I'm in there too, man. Yeah, I get it. I get it.
I'm looking because it's.
My wife teases me all the
it's
time,
like
calling me
they have no
nerd.
space.
It's a badge of honor.
It is.
Thank
Thank
you. It's like, you know, when some people do, you know, like some places in the country. Certain ways that they don't have a place for their live, so. It's pretty much paving and.
And well, and that was even one of the things, even in looking at different housing types, because a lot of these young kids don't want green space. I mean, they don't want the yard
They'd be
maintenance.
okay with little.
Yeah, they don't want I was in
Uh-huh.
Houston this past week, visiting my niece, and it's a whole development and they're all single family detached. But well, this is an apartment complex, but they
So
all
are they
single.
detached like over out in, you know, near Deerbergs there, like there's like that much space between them, or are they detached? Like?
Yeah, no, there's about there's like that much space, it's probably.
What do they do with it?
It's probably 12 inches between them. And then, you know, and then in the back, they have their little fenced in yard area because that's where she takes her dog down. They're 3 stories, you know, and so this
So
is
is it all 3 stories, one person?
Mhm.
Okay,
yeah,
and what do they do in the little space in between? How does it like say clean?
I guess it's the association, the homeowners association or whatever. I mean, it's like, but I mean, yeah, they are detached. They're not, because that's why when I was looking at, because first when I drove in, it was late. So I thought those were just like condos or whatever. But the next day when I came in, I said, these things are detached.
I'd be curious to know the nerdy reason for that. Because it just seems like it would be a maintenance issue and that
Yeah,
even as you were, as you were driving
They
by.
figured it out
Yeah.
clearly because they're all over the
So,
city.
so
Yeah.
before we go, two things. First, are we?
Oh, you can stop. Oh, yeah, we adjourned the meeting. Is that okay with everyone?
Yeah.
Yes.
All in favor?
I
Aye.
did vote.